Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are playing as the Skaven with Lord Skrulk in command against the forces of the Empire on the map Gorgazan. And the reason I actually chose this replay to demonstrate is not so much because of anything I do, but actually because of something my opponent brought here, the Sunmaker. And I kind of wanted to see, do a game where I could see how it performed. I haven't really gotten around to trying it much myself. I always look at that price tag and I'm like, yuck. I'll try it. I have used normal Hellstorm rocket battery. I do think it's not bad in certain matchups, but I always look at the Sunmaker and it's 1800 price tag and I'm like, ew. But we'll see how it goes for my opponent here. And I kind of was interested to see what my opponent had in mind here. My opponent went very elite here, so this is really promising to be a bit of an interesting matchup. So as I mentioned, I did go with Lord Skrulk, kitted out to the teeth, to the whiskers with Rod of Corruption. He's got Elite Rubonicus, he's got Stand Your Ground, no Pestilential Birth, just Vermintide, Wither, Blessed with Filth, and Pestilent Breath, no Plague either. Aura of Pestilence as well as Plague Rash. He's backed by a Warlock Engineer who of course has the Warpstone Armor, which is an AoE Mortal Ascension effect, and then Death Frenzy for potential buffs if I need them in a pinch. My front line, a bit cheap but very wide, a mix of Clanrat Shields and Plague Monks. Clanrat's shields out on the far flanks. I figured if my opponent went, say, with Great Swords, which are not a bad pick at all against Skaven, I would hit him with a Wither, and that would make the Plague Monks much more effective. Second line is 3 units of Night Runners with Slings, 2 Zone Away Pistoliers, which my opponent brought. These guys were specifically there against Pistoliers and Outriders, and, you know, my opponent brought them, so hey, at least they'll have a purpose. And then we do have 2 units of Hellpit Abominations, and these guys are a unit I've actually used quite a bit in the Empire matchup. They have so much HP that even with their mass artillery, Empire does struggle to put these guys down, even with all their shooting. They do have monstrous AP damage and a decent enough anti-large to where they completely dumpster Empire large units. Like Royal Griff fights will not do well against them. Neither would, say, Lord like Volkmar or most of the other Empire Lords will not do great against Hellpit Abominations. They're actually solid in my opinion in this matchup if you're able to shut down enemy shooting fast enough. For my opponent, you can see he went with a bit of a unique build. And you can see the Sunmaker firing away. He's got a very flat sort of... this is a very flat map, so it's able to get a nice little volley here. And you can see immediately these Plague Monks just getting absolutely demolished, losing thousands of HP in just that single volley. So very, very nasty sort of opening strike there. And in comes the Hellblaster continues pouring in. The Pistoliers here whittling down my Plague Monks. Not a bad choice. My opponent picking out targets that are more vulnerable. With his build. He doesn't have the most shooting here. He's got a Hellblaster, which I think is not a good pick against Skaven. I think if you're going to bring artillery against Skaven, this is kind of pointless. Skaven don't have elite infantry really to use it on. I think you're better off bringing a mortar if you're going to bring any artillery. But my opponent did decide to test it out here, and you can see it's doing some damage to the Plague Monks. He's got Sterling's Revenge, never a bad pick. Who he did Vanguard to sort of poke away at me. They're going to tee off a little bit on these Plague Monks, do a little bit of damage, and a Celestial Wizard up in the sky with Power Stone, with Wind Blast, Comet of Cassadora, and Harmonic Convergence. And surprisingly, probably on accident, my opponent did bring the Roiling Skies. Now you can see in the meantime, though, the Plague Monks have essentially broken. Down to 2600 HP, almost no leadership, completely falling apart. You can see the Plague Monks over here getting messed up really bad. My Night Runners trying to keep up with the formation, whittle down these Pistoliers, but just not able to. But you know, they're doing some damage. Definitely glad I brought Slingers instead of normal variant. And now the Hellpits are going to plow into the Royal Dwarf Griffites. And much like the current Charybdis, now Royal Dwarf Griffites are great against heavily armored large units. They're great against, and they actually I do believe beat a Charybdis, for example, but they're great against heavily armored units. They're great against their cavalry. It's true for Demigryphs in general, especially the Royal Dwarf Griffites. But they actually don't shine that well against units which are a boatload of HP, not much armor, and a lot of weapon strength in response, because Demigryphs don't have the best melee defense. If you look at these guys, they've got 41 melee defense, so Hellpit Abomination is hitting them about 50% of the time, with quite a bit of splash, so doing a lot of damage there. Beating the snot out of these Royal Griffites, they do pop a Rod of Corruption to melt some of these troops down. You can see my opponent, despite getting some very hefty damage in initially, you can see the Hellstorm up to 40 kills, doing quite a bit of damage. It's just not able to really do much at this point. He does have these swordsmen. He does have the Sigmar Sons here holding the front line. He does have Volkmar running around, providing fear, terror, disruption. He's got banishment on him, all that sort of stuff. But My opponent just didn't have enough of a front line here. He doesn't have enough anti-large, you can see. There's nothing here to kill the Hellpit. Now, granted, the Sunmaker here is going to rake these poor Night Runners with fire and really beat them up, but for these poor Demigryphs, it's too little too late. They're going to get dumpstered. The Swordsmen are going to terror out. You can see Skrulk running through. Of course, Skrulk does have a leadership debuff. He's got Contaminate, which makes him pretty good in a different way. In the meantime, you can see the Sunmaker here just getting peppered down by Night Runner fire. And we've summoned a unit of Clan Rats to slaughter the Hellblaster. They're doing a good job there. Taking it offline, the Swordsmen break. Pistoliers don't have enough ammo, really, to take down this many rats. And now that we're getting our Hellpit Abominations on the Sunmaker, you can see it's getting just destroyed, demo-derbied by these ugly rat beings. And they still have, it looks like they've been beaten down. They haven't beaten down a good bit, but they still have regen. They've still got over 5,000, but both of them have over half HP still. You've got 6,000, 5,000. My opponent just doesn't have enough ammo to kill these two. And neither Volkmar nor the Light Wizard is a serious threat, or the Celestial Wizard is a serious threat. So over here you can see I do cast Wither, dropping Sigmar Sun's armor to 0. These guys, of course, will hold to the bitter end, especially against crappy units like Clan Rats. But, you know, despite the use of Banishment here, my opponent is essentially knocked out now. Still, Pistoliers shooting away, but the Hellblaster's gone, the Swordsmen are gone, the Royal Gryphites coming back at 7 models, but they're about to pile into a bunch of Skaven infantry. They're going to get chopped up. They get jumped by that horde of infantry. And although they themselves could probably take on, say, a unit of Skaven Clan Rats or whatever, there's just too many. And the numbers will begin to tell. And you can see they're getting torn to shreds. They're going to get torn from their Demigryphs there. And just not going to have a good day at all. Just, there's too many rats. In the meantime, Volkmar running for dear life. Grandula Fane popped. He's, of course, got his Jade Griffin, but some more rats surrounding him. Night Runners jumping in the melee, and the Hellpit Abomination doing a lot of work. Now my opponent, nice little Wind Blast there, melting the Night Runners, but too little, too late at this point. You can see Volkmar here just getting snot beaten out of him. He's only got 20 defense, so he's not very tanky at all. I'm not entirely sure what's going down here. Probably Comet. It doesn't do well against units like a Hellpit. But either way, at this point, it's mostly just last-ditch efforts from my opponent. You can see the Demigryphs there failing, the Swordsmen falling apart. Another Pestilential Breath there, raking the Sterling Revenge, killing quite a few of them. That was something I actually got 2 casts off on these guys, and it really messed them up. And at this point, it's simply Sigmar Sun's on the field, getting slaughtered in the pits, and Volkmar. So my opponent does decide to GG out. So another good game against Sheev KMP. Or I don't know if that's what it's supposed to be, but lots of fun playing against him. Had quite a few matches against him in just the past few days, so it's been a lot of fun. But quickly going over the composition here, I do think this is actually pretty... Now, one of the things I wanted to point out is the Sunmaker here got 89 kills. Now, granted, I don't think it's a good choice against Skaven. The reason being, Skaven are not... While Skaven are a very numerous faction, they're not a faction that's that prone to blob. They're usually going to try to swarm you, surround you. They're going to have a horde of cheap infantry backed by a few elites, like what you have here. In which case, the Sunmaker doesn't get optimal value. It's really, but nonetheless, it can get some kills, and it might be decent against if you bring him against a faction that's really elite oriented, maybe High Elves, and you're on a flat map. I think it could do well. This is a pretty good indicator that it can do some damage. So I don't know, for 1,800 gold, it's not a lot, but maybe it can be made to work. Give me a little bit more healthy respect, especially when I saw it just break those Plague Monks. I don't think this is necessarily what my opponent here was doing. Was, I think, a bit of a silly build, just trying out stuff, which is perfectly fine. That's always great to do. Obviously, not the most competitive with the 2 odd artillery pieces and doubled up Pistoliers. So Pistoliers can be okay against Skaven, but really, you're better off, I think, bringing some great swords and some proper heavy cav like Reichsguard or Knights of the Blazing Sun. You'll usually get better results that way. For my own build, I do think this is decent against Empire. Maybe throw in some Clan Rat Spears instead of Clan Rat Shields, potentially, and if you're on the periphery to defend against large on the sides. But the 2 Hellpit Abominations give you 2 really strong anchor units that are really hard for Empire large to deal with. Empire has to shoot them down, but with summons from Skrulk, you can usually shut enemy shooting down, and with Night Runner help. So, all in all, I think a pretty decent Skaven comp. You can see both Hellpits gaining 2 chevrons, fighting Volkmar, fighting the Demigryphs. trashing the Sunmaker. So definitely don't underestimate them. I'd say a lot of people just don't use them or laugh them off, but the Hellpit Abomination is not a pushover, so definitely don't underestimate it. But yeah, gonna get into my opponent here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, anything like that, be sure to share them, and I will respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.